They say when the poor fall in love with the rich, it is either a miracle or a mistake. For me, it was both. My name is Mike, the son of a struggling widow in our small town. My father died when I was only 10, leaving Mama to raise me and my two younger sisters, Precious and Favor. Mama sold firewood at the market, her back bent from years of carrying burdens that life never allowed her to drop. Our one-room house leaked whenever the rains came, but inside that broken home, there was love. I grew up knowing that wealth was a language my family could not speak. Yet love was free, or so I thought. The first time I saw Juliet, I was fixing a bicycle at the roadside near her father's mansion. She stepped out of a sleek black SUV, her white dress glowing under the sun, her laughter ringing like bells that mocked my poverty. I froze. For a moment, I forgot who I was. She was the daughter of Chief Felix, the richest and most feared man in town. A man whose handshake could make you, and whose anger could bury you. I expected her to pass by without noticing me, like every other rich man's daughter. But she didn't. She smiled. She asked if I could fix her younger brother's bicycle too. That was how it began. At first it was small conversations whenever she passed. Then it became stolen glances, hidden notes, and late-night walks when the town slept. She sometimes visits me at home, our hearts racing faster than the crickets chirping in the dark. "Mike," she whispered one night, her hand trembling in mine, "what if my father finds out?" I looked into her eyes, the only place I ever felt like a rich man. "Then let him find out," I said, though my voice betrayed my fear. She giggled, pressing her head against my chest. "You're too bold." But the truth was, I wasn't bold. I was foolish. I didn't understand then that some kinds of love are too costly for men like me. The more we met, the deeper we sank. Juliet had everything: money, beauty, education. Yet she chose me, the son of nobody. She said it was my humility, my honesty, my dreams of becoming an engineer someday. To her, I was a breath of fresh air. To me, she was the oxygen that kept me alive. But we were not blind. We knew her father would never bless our union. Chief Felix was a man who measured people by their bank accounts, not their hearts. He had built his empire on arrogance, corruption, and fear. A poor boy like me could never cross his gate as a suitor. Still, love has a way of making people believe in impossible miracles. One evening, Juliet held my hand tightly. "Mike," she said, her voice shaking, "promise me we will fight for this, no matter what comes." I stared at her, at the tears glistening in her eyes. "Juliet, even if the whole world turns against me, I will never let you go." We sealed it with a kiss, unaware that the shadows around us carried ears. A driver of her father's household had seen us once, and whispers began to spread like wildfire. The warnings came subtly at first. "Mike, do you know who you're toying with? Chief Felix can crush you like an ant." People murmured. Even Mama begged me one evening. Her weary eyes filled with fear. "My son," she said softly, "poor people do not fight lions. You are my only hope. Do not waste your life." I hugged her, but my heart refused to listen. I was already in too deep. The night it became clear was the night Juliet sneaked out to tell me her father had plans to marry her off to the son of a wealthy politician. She sobbed uncontrollably in my arms. "I don't want him, Mike. I want you. Only you." And it was in that moment, with her tears soaking my shirt, that I made a silent vow. I would fight Chief Felix himself if I had to. Love had already chained me, and I was ready to pay the price. What I didn't know was that the price would be prison bars, humiliation, and the death of the woman who gave me life. If love is a fire, then secrets are the dry wood that keep it burning. For weeks, Juliet and I fed our fire in silence, meeting whenever her father's shadow was far from reach. But shadows cannot be hidden forever. It began the evening Chief Felix returned home earlier than expected. Juliet had just slipped back into her room from our secret meeting under the mango tree. Her clothes smelled faintly of the dusty Harmattan breeze, her cheeks flushed with the glow of laughter. She thought no one noticed, but Chief Felix's eyes were sharp, trained by years of crushing enemies before they could rise. "Where are you coming from at this hour?" he demanded, his deep voice filling the marble halls of his mansion. Juliet stammered, her heart pounding. I just went for a walk, Papa." Chief Felix studied her with suspicion. A father knows when his daughter is hiding something, and this man was not just a father, he was a predator, always hunting for weakness. Later that night, one of his drivers, who had spotted me with Juliet weeks before, whispered into his ear, "Chief, I think your daughter has been seeing that poor boy, the one they call Mike." The name was enough. Chief Felix's rage boiled like oil in a pot. The next day, as I returned from the mechanic's shop where I worked part-time, two of his bodyguards confronted me on the dusty roadside. They shoved me against a wall, their cologne choking me as much as their grip. "You," one sneered, "stay away from our madam, or else." I struggled to catch my breath, fear crawling up my spine, but my pride refused to bow. "Tell your boss," I spat, "that I love Juliet and nothing will stop me." The blow came so fast I tasted blood. They left me sprawled in the dust, my shirt torn, my ribs aching. As I staggered home, villagers whispered, shaking their heads. "Mike, leave that girl, oh," one old woman muttered. "A cockroach cannot marry a fowl's daughter." But I was young, stubborn, and blind to warnings. That night, Juliet sneaked out again, tears running down her face as she saw the bruises on my skin. "Oh, Mike," she sobbed, holding me like her embrace could heal the wounds. "I told you Papa would be dangerous. He will never allow us. He thinks you're beneath me." I wiped her tears with trembling fingers. "Juliet, you're worth every wound. Even if I must crawl through fire, I'll fight for us." She clutched my hand desperately. "Promise me, Mike. Promise me we'll never let them break us." "I promise," I whispered. "Not even death will stop me." We held each other under the moon, believing our love could fight an empire. Days turned into weeks, and Chief Felix grew restless. He ordered Juliet's movements closely watched. She noticed the eyes that followed her, the sudden restrictions placed on her freedom. Once, when she tried to visit her cousin in town, her father's voice thundered, "You will not leave this compound without my permission again. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Papa," Juliet whispered, though her heart raged in silence. That night she came to me breathless, her hands trembling as she gripped mine. "Mike, my father is dangerous. He will destroy you if he finds out we're still seeing each other." I looked into her terrified eyes and felt a storm inside me. I wanted to tell her to run, to obey her father, to stay safe. But my love was louder than reason. "Juliet," I said, my voice firm, "I don't care if your father owns the world. He can't own your heart. As long as you choose me, nothing else matters." And she chose me. She chose me again and again. Every night she risked sneaking out, every kiss she gave me, despite the danger. But fate was writing our story with a cruel pen, and the ink was running fast. Because while Juliet and I were whispering promises under the stars, Chief Felix was sharpening the knife of betrayal. He was a man who never lost, and I was about to learn what it meant to challenge the king of a town. Powerful men do not shout when they want to destroy you. They smile, sip their wine, and whisper commands that turn into storms. Chief Felix was such a man. For weeks he had watched Juliet's behavior, her secret smiles, the glow in her eyes whenever she returned from outside. He knew it wasn't sickness, nor was it chance. It was love. And not love with the son of a governor or the heir of a politician, but with a boy who earned coins fixing rusty bicycles and repairing leaking generators. To a man like Felix, it was more than insult. It was war. At his dinner table one night, he pushed his plate aside and said coldly to his trusted manager, "That boy must be taught a lesson. By the time I'm done, even his shadow will fear to cross my gate." The plan was swift and merciless. Felix ordered a fake robbery staged in his company's warehouse. Goods were missing, records were tampered with, and just enough evidence was planted to point at me. Why me? Because the world already believed the poor were born thieves. All it needed was one whisper, and the town would condemn me before the court ever did. On the night of Juliet's birthday, I was meant to sneak out with her to celebrate quietly under our mango tree. I had bought her a small silver chain with my meager savings, my heart full of joy as I imagined placing it around her neck. But fate had other gifts that night. It was late when we heard the violent pounding on our wooden door. Bang, bang, bang! "Mama Mike, open this door now!" a voice roared. Before Mama could even untie her wrapper properly, the door burst open and armed policemen flooded our one-room home like a river of fear. Precious screamed. Favor clung to Mama's waist, trembling. "What is this? What has my son done?" Mama cried, her voice breaking. The officer in front sneered. "Your criminal son is under arrest. He stole from Chief Felix's company." "God forbid!" Mama shouted, her hands shaking. "My son is not a thief. He would rather starve than steal." But her words fell like stones into a well, swallowed by darkness. Before I could protest, two men grabbed me, twisting my arms behind my back as if I were some hardened criminal. The cold snap of handcuffs bit into my wrists. "Mama!" I cried as she fell to her knees, clutching the officer's boots. "Please! My son is innocent! Don't take him!" Precious tried to fight, her small hands hitting the officer's leg, but he shoved her aside like trash. She fell, scraping her knee, her cry piercing my heart more than the cuffs. The neighbors had gathered outside, their faces a mix of curiosity and judgment. "Yeah, so Mike na thief?" one woman whispered. "I knew it," another hissed. "Which poor man can love a rich man's daughter without plan?" Their words cut deeper than knives. I lifted my head, desperate to speak, to explain, but my voice drowned in the chaos. "Mama, believe me!" I shouted as they dragged me out into the night. "I didn't do it! I swear before God!" Mama's tears streamed down her cheeks, her voice hoarse as she cried after me. "My son, God is your witness. He will fight for you." But the police van swallowed me whole, its iron doors slamming shut like the mouth of a beast. And as we drove away, the night sky mocked me with its silence. Somewhere in the distance, fireworks exploded, Juliet's birthday celebration. She was probably blowing out candles, surrounded by friends and family unaware of my fate, while I was being driven into darkness, accused of a crime I didn't commit. My heart broke, not for myself, but for Mama, Precious, and Favor, who had been humiliated in front of the whole neighborhood. I leaned my head against the cold bars of the van, whispering into the night, "Why, Lord? Why me?" But heaven gave no answer. Only the rumble of the van's tires on the rough road reminded me that my destiny had shifted forever. That night, Under the same moon where Juliet once kissed me, I became a prisoner. The cell was cold, but not as cold as the stairs that followed me into the courtroom that morning. My wrists bore the cruel marks of handcuffs, and my clothes smelled of dust and sweat. The murmurs of the crowd stung worse than whips. "That's the thief. Imagine, poor boy stealing from Chief Felix. Love has blinded him." Every eye condemned me before the trial began. Mama sat in the front row, her wrapper tied tightly across her chest, her hands clutching her Bible as if it could rewrite my fate. Precious and Favor sat beside her, their young faces pale with fear. I could see their lips moving silently, prayers too weak to stop a storm. Then she walked in. Juliet. Her eyes were swollen from sleepless nights, her hands trembling as she clutched her father's arm. She broke free and rushed toward me, her voice piercing through the whispers. "Papa, please," she cried, falling to her knees before Chief Felix. "Don't do this. Mike is innocent. You know he didn't steal anything." The courtroom fell silent. All eyes turned to Chief Felix. But his face was stone. He pulled his arm away from her grip, his voice dripping with contempt. "You shame me, Juliet. You kneel for a mechanic, a nobody. Get up before you disgrace yourself further." Tears streamed down Juliet's cheeks. "I love him, Papa. Isn't that worth something?" Her father's eyes turned like burning coals. "Love does not put food on the table. Love does not build empires. That boy will rot in prison, and you," he glared at her, "will forget him." Juliet collapsed in sobs, her cries echoing in the hall. But her father had spoken. His word was law. The trial began. Witness after witness paraded before the judge, each one more rehearsed than the last. "I saw Mike near the warehouse the night of the robbery," one man lied, his eyes flicking nervously toward Chief Felix. "Yes, I helped him load goods into a truck," another claimed, sweat dripping down his face. "Evidence appeared, receipts with my forged signature, documents doctored to perfection." I wanted to shout, to protest, but my lawyer, a tired man who had been bribed into silence, remained still, flipping through papers without interest. "Mama," I whispered once, my voice breaking, "I didn't do this." She gripped her Bible tighter, tears streaming down her face. "God sees, my son. God sees." The prosecutor painted me as a greedy thief, a poor boy desperate to climb into riches by any means. The crowd nodded, their eyes sharp, their judgment final. When it was my turn to speak, my voice shook but carried every ounce of truth I had. "I am innocent," I said, my gaze sweeping across the courtroom. "I have never stolen in my life. The only thing I am guilty of is loving Juliet." Gasps filled the hall. Juliet's sobs grew louder. Chief Felix's jaw tightened. The judge, unmoved, adjusted his glasses and began to read. His voice was steady, merciless, and final. "Michael Okafor, having been found guilty of theft and fraud, you are hereby sentenced to 7 years imprisonment." The words struck me like bullets. 7 years. 7 years of chains for a crime I did not commit. "Mama!" I cried as the policeman grabbed me. She screamed and tried to run to me, but before she could reach the dock, her body went limp. With a sharp cry, she collapsed on the courtroom floor. "Mama!" Precious screamed, rushing to her side. Favor wailed as villagers scrambled. The gavel banged. The judge called for order. But my world had already fallen apart. I was dragged out of the courtroom, Juliet's cries chasing me, Mama lying unconscious on the cold tiles, my sisters screaming for help. And as the doors slammed behind me, I realized the cruel truth. In a world ruled by men like Chief Felix, truth was powerless, and love was a curse. That was the day I lost my freedom. That was the day I began my journey as the innocent prisoner. The prison gates creaked open, their rusted iron bars groaning like the voice of sorrow itself. Inside the waiting area, Mama sat on a rickety wooden bench, her wrapper faded from years of wear. The once vibrant colors had dulled, just like the light in her eyes. Her palms were rough, cracked from endless hours of frying akara by the roadside, her only means of survival. She clutched a small nylon bag tightly. Inside it, 2 oranges, my favorite bitter leaf soup, and a bottle of water. That was all she could afford to bring her son. When the warder finally called her name, she rose slowly, her knees trembling, her heart pounding. The sight of her son in prison uniform nearly broke her soul. My once bright eyes were sunken, my body leaner, but my spirit still flickered in my smile when I saw her. "Mama," I whispered, reaching across the cold iron table that separated them. Tears welled in Mama's eyes as she cupped my hand. "My son, oh my son, look what they have done to you, all because you loved. I warned you, I did warn you," she sobbed. I forced a weak smile. "Don't cry, Mama. I'll endure it. God sees everything." But Mama couldn't stop crying. The weight of poverty pressed on her chest. She had sold her last gold earrings, the ones she had saved from her wedding, to pay for transport to the prison. She had borrowed money from neighbors to print petitions to lawyers. But every door closed. Chief Felix's influence was too powerful. Lawyers feared to take my case. "Mike, my dear son, I tried. I sold my wrappers. I even sold the land. It's still a fraction of what's needed to fight for you. I wanted to free you, but they laughed at me. They said I'm just a poor widow who should accept fate." Her voice cracked like a breaking calabash. I held her hand tighter. "Don't say that, Mama. You've done more than anyone else. You are my strength. Just promise me you'll keep praying and be strong for me, please." With tears streaming, Mama leaned forward, whispering with trembling lips, "God of justice, fight for my son. If I die before he comes out, let heaven remember him." Her words stabbed my heart like a dagger. I blinked back my tears, trying to look strong for her. But inside, I was crumbling. And somewhere outside the prison walls, Juliet was locked in her father's mansion, probably crying into her pillow, forbidden from writing or visiting. She whispered my name into the night, but her voice was carried away by the silence. That day, as Mama left the prison, her frail body bent under the scorching sun, people whispered, "Will that poor woman survive this trial? She is finished. Who can fight Chief Felix?" But Mama walked on with her head bowed, clutching her empty nylon bag. Her tears fell freely, and every drop was a prayer. The news hit me like a hammer to the chest. It was a fellow inmate who smuggled in the whispers. Juliet had been forced to marry a wealthy oil merchant from Port Harcourt. For a long time, I sat on the cold prison floor, staring at the rusted bars, unable to breathe. My heart refused to accept it. Juliet? My Juliet? My mind replayed every memory, her laughter, our secret night walks, the promise she made, "I will fight for us." But now, silence. Juliet had become silent. And in that silence, my heart began to break. The woman I loved was out there, bound to another while I rotted in chains. That day, a part of me died behind those bars. The first thing I learned in prison was that walls had voices. Not voices that spoke with mouths, but with echoes. Groans of despair, cries in the night, and the clanging of chains that refused to let hope breathe. The guards were ruthless. Food was nothing but watery beans with stones that cracked teeth. Some days we don't even eat. The air was filled with sweat, blood, and the bitter smell of hopelessness. Every inmate carried scars, not just on their skin, but on their souls. I soon realized that survival wasn't about strength alone. It was about finding a reason to keep breathing. One evening, after a fight broke out in the yard, a weary man with graying hair sat beside me. His name was Bala, a man who had been there for 15 years. His voice was hoarse but steady. He looked into my troubled eyes and said, "Son, sometimes prison is not built of walls. Prison is built of people's lies. You are here not because you are guilty, but because someone's lie was stronger than your truth." Those words pierced me like a sword. I held on to them as though they were oxygen. And as I tried to fight despair within the prison, I had no idea that my mother, the only person still carrying my hope, was slowly slipping away. Behind bars, I learned that freedom is not just about the chains on your hands, but the chains of lies on your name. The prison yard was unusually quiet that afternoon. I sat in a corner, staring at nothing, my heart heavy with memories of home. Suddenly, the sound of my name being called by a prison warden pulled me back to reality. "Michael Okafor, visitor!" Hope leapt in my chest. Maybe Mama had come, maybe Precious or Favor. But when I saw Precious walk in, her eyes swollen and red, my world began to crumble before she even spoke. "Brother," her voice cracked, "Mama is gone." I froze. My body stiffened as though the words had shattered my bones. "No, no, Precious. Tell me it's a lie. Tell me Mama is alive." My voice broke, echoing through the concrete walls. "She died in her sleep, clutching your picture. She waited for you, Mike. She waited, but..." Precious couldn't finish. She fell to her knees, weeping. Something snapped inside me. I roared like a wounded lion, slamming my fists against the cold prison wall until my knuckles split and blood painted the cement. Other inmates watched silently, some with pity, others with tears in their own eyes. "Why her, God? Why Mama? She didn't deserve this," I cried until my voice turned hoarse. She died waiting for justice. She died because the rich crushed us. I lay on the floor of my cell, clutching my bloodied fists and whispering through tears, "Mama, I swear your tears will not be in vain." The death of a mother can bury a man, or it can resurrect the warrior inside him. For me, prison walls could no longer cage the fire that burned in my heart. 7 years. 7 years of iron doors slamming shut, of hunger gnawing at the belly, of bruises that healed only to be replaced with new scars. 7 years of watching men rot like forgotten shadows. My youth faded behind the cold prison bars, my dreams crushed by injustice. But on this day, the prison gates creaked open, not for punishment, but for mercy. A new governor had risen to power, and with him came a decree of pardon for prisoners unjustly serving time. Hope, a stranger to Mike for so long, suddenly found a way into his cell. "Number 417, you are free," the warder barked, holding a slip of paper. I staggered to my feet, weak and gaunt, my eyes hollow, beard overgrown, clothes hanging loose on my skeleton frame. I could barely believe it. Freedom? After all this? As I stepped into the sunlight, it blinded me. For years, the sky had been a rumor told by birds that flew past my prison bars. Now it stretched before me, vast, blue, and endless. Tears flooded my eyes. Freedom at last, but it was freedom without my mother's embrace. I stumbled outside with Precious and Favor waiting at the gate. Thinner, older, yet smiling through tears. Brother, Mama didn't wait to see this day, Precious sobbed, pressing Mama's old wrapper into my hands. I dropped to my knees crying like a child. I was free, but my mother had paid the ultimate price for my unjust chains. Hours later, I knelt by my dear mother's grave, grieving and wishing I never gave love a chance. That night, under the stars, I swore, Chief Felix will taste the same tears he made my family cry. The boy who entered prison was gone. The man who stepped out carried scars, anger, and a burning need for justice. The first weeks after my release were not what I had dreamed of while counting days behind the cold prison walls. Freedom was sweet, but it carried a bitter taste that people who once shared food with my mother now whispered loudly when I passed. Some spat on the ground, their voices sharp like knives. "See, I'm ex-convict. Him come back to spoil the village. Now love land you inside prison, Abi, you never learn." Every insult pierced my heart, but I walked on in silence. I carried the weight of 7 wasted years, the memory of my mother's death, and the haunting image of Juliet in another man's arms. At night, I lay awake. Favor slept beside me, murmuring in dreams, while Precious kept watch like a mother hen. She would whisper gently, "Brother, don't let their words finish you. Mama's spirit is watching. We must rise again." Those words became my anchor. One morning, Precious placed her last savings in my hands. Small, crumpled Naira notes she had hidden in a tin under the bed. "Take this," she said firmly. "Start something. Don't wait for pity. The same people mocking us will one day eat from your hand." I stared at her, tears threatening to fall. "But Precious, this is your sweat. I can't." She pressed my hand shut. "We are family. What is mine is yours. Didn't Mama say we must stand for each other?" With trembling hope, I bought old mechanic tools and rented a tiny wooden shed by the roadside. At first, nobody trusted me with their motorcycles or cars. They passed by, laughing. "Ex-convict one fixed motor? Before you return my tire, ego disappear." But I swallowed the insults, determined. I cleaned the engines under the scorching sun, sometimes for free, just to prove myself. One day a kind stranger brought his broken-down Peugeot. I worked tirelessly, my hands steady, my mind sharp. Within hours the car roared back to life, the man's face lit with gratitude. "Young man, you are good. I will tell others about you." That single job became a turning point. Word spread slowly. Customers trickled in. To repaired engine was not just a job. It was a step toward reclaiming my dignity. Evenings were still hard. Sometimes hunger bent them low. But at night, when the shed was quiet, I would kneel by my mother's picture on the wall and whisper, "Mama, they tried to bury me in shame, but like a seed I will rise from the ashes." And each morning, with renewed strength, I picked up my tools, ready to fight my way back to life. The years had carved lines of sorrow on Juliet's once radiant face. Her marriage to the wealthy man her father had chosen had collapsed like a weak wall under rain. Betrayal, abuse, and emptiness had consumed her. Now divorced and childless, she walked the familiar path back to her father's house, her heart trembling with shame. When Juliet stepped into my workshop, the sound of spanners and hammers paused. I bent over an engine, raised my head slowly. My face was leaner, hardened by prison years, my eyes carrying a fire she had never seen before. "Mike," Juliet whispered, her voice breaking. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she knelt before me. "I wronged you. My father destroyed us, but I didn't fight hard enough. Please, forgive me." The workshop fell silent. Precious, standing nearby, folded her arms tightly, her jaw clenched. To her, Juliet's tears were late, too late. I stared at Juliet, my chest rising and falling. The memories of our stolen kisses, her laughter, and the night Chief Felix's men dragged me away flashed before my eyes. Pain and love collided in my heart. Juliet, I muttered, voice hoarse. Do you know what 7 years in chains feels like? Do you know my mother died waiting for justice? Juliet sobbed harder. I know, Mike. My father's pride killed your joy, but he is paying now. His empire is falling. Corruption cases, government seizure. He is a broken man. The words pierced my heart like a blade. Chief Felix, the man who stole my youth, was finally crumbling. Precious stepped forward angrily. And now you want to run back to him because your rich husband rejected you? No, you don't get to use my brother again. Juliet turned to her, weeping. I'm not here to use him. I'm here because I never stopped loving him. You never stopped loving him? If you had loved him enough as claimed, you would have fought harder for his release. Maybe he wouldn't have wasted those years in prison, and my dear mother would still be alive. You can't eat your cake and have it back, Precious animously said. Juliet's eyes were swollen from endless tears. Mike, she whispered, I want to help you. Let me finance this place. You deserve better than this. Better than grease-stained hands and scraps of customers. She brought an envelope filled with cash, but I looked at it as though it were poison. I wiped my hands on my rag, staring at her with tired eyes. Juliet, I said quietly, I lost my freedom, my mother, and my name because of your father. Money cannot wash that away. I don't need your pity, and I don't want your wealth. If I will rise with my own sweat. I would appreciate you left us alone. She lowered her head, ashamed and unsure of what next to say left. News swept through the town like wildfire. Chief Felix, once untouchable, had been disgraced. His companies collapsed, the government seized his properties, and he was dragged away in handcuffs for corruption and fraud. He finally confessed to having me framed. The same people who once bowed before him now whispered in corners, pointing fingers. The God of the innocent prisoner has fought. See how the mighty has fallen. I stood in silence the day I saw Felix's arrest on television. My hands trembled, not with joy, but with a storm of emotions. The man who destroyed my life was finally tasting shame, but the victory felt hollow. Mama was gone. Years of my youth were gone. No judgment could ever restore what I lost. Years passed. The dust of disgrace that buried Chief Felix grew heavier until his name became a curse on every tongue. He died a lonely man, stripped of honor, abandoned by the very wealth he once worshipped. But me, my story was different. I rebuilt my mechanic workshop, not with donations, but with patience, sweat, and the loyalty of friends and family who believed in me. Customers came not just for repairs, but to hear my words of hope. Slowly, my name carried weight again, not as the prisoner, but as the man who rose from chains.